sick of hearing about feminists and snowflakes, or feminism and snowflakes. I had a conversation with a so-called feminist the other day, and I asked her, explain feminism to me because I don't really understand it. So she says, I'm standing up for women's rights because they've been oppressed and they're still being oppressed. So I said to her, which women? She says, well, she looked a bit bemused and she says, well, what do you mean, which women? I says, well, which women are you representing? She says, all women. I said, really? You represent all women as a feminist? You represent all women? She says, yes, because they've been oppressed for years, which they have. Women have been oppressed for years. And I says, do you represent the bad ones? She looked at me a bit quizzical. And it was on the tip of her tongue she was going to say, there isn't any bad ones. But she knew she couldn't say that. She went, well, what do you mean? I said, well, do you represent the women that hurt children? Do you represent the sexual exploiters? Do you represent the woman who bullies? Do you represent the gospels? Do you represent the cruel, malicious narcissists? So she looked at me as if to say, well, no, of course I don't. I says, well, which women do you represent then? So, well, I'll make it easy for you. Do you represent the good ones or the bad ones? And she tried to have an argument and say, well, good and bad are relative terms. I'm like, well, I know fucking good and bad are relative terms, that's obvious, but let's just keep it really simple. Do you represent women who are generally good or generally bad? And she was shying away from saying that there actually is a proportion of women who are generally bad. In my experience, as a child, all the key figures, the key females in my life, were nasty pieces of work. They were cruel, vindictive, bigoted, violent racists. Every single woman, that's like parents, wider family and school teachers. There might have been a few that were okay, but they never really showed up in my life. But anyway, the woman who claimed to be a feminist that I was talking to had a dilemma. And her dilemma was, did she represent the good women or the bad women? So for the sake of the argument, I think she was humouring me. She says, okay, well, I represent the good women. So I says, okay, which ones? She went, well, what do you mean, which ones? I said, well, which country do they come from? Do you represent the good women across the world? And again, she was a little bit put off by my question, and I wasn't trying to be sarcastic or cruel or controversial in any way. I was asking a sincere question. She said, which woman do you represent? So it was obvious that while she was looking at me that she didn't really know the answer to the specifics of the woman that she represented. But she wanted to stand for women that were being oppressed. So I said to her, if you want to stand and talk and support women that are being oppressed, don't you need to know who they are? Like specifically who it is you're actually representing, just in case you misrepresent anyone. And she says, well, that's a good point. I say, so the women that you represent now, let's say the good ones, did they ask you to represent them? Did they say, I want you to represent me because I can't represent myself, I can't speak for myself? And she says, well, no. She says, well, where did you get permission? Where did you get permission to represent and speak on someone else's behalf if they never gave you permission? Surely that's unfair. Surely that's fair, you know, and being abusive. Say, I represent you even though you didn't ask me to represent you. Well, who does that make you if you're representing someone that you don't know? Again, she looked a bit bewildered. She kept trying to avoid the discussion. I kept bringing her straight back to the discussion. She says, and another point, if you're going to represent an oppressed group of people, surely you should be in amongst them, underneath them, supporting them to represent themselves. So I guess what I'm saying is, about my discussion with the feminists, and I know some feminists out there are going to say, you're a man, so you're biased and you're an oppressor and all that sort of stuff, although my wife and my daughter would firmly disagree with what you had to say about that. What I'm saying is if you want to be a feminist, that's absolutely fine. If you want to represent oppressed people, that's absolutely fine as well. Nothing the matter with that. That's a righteous position to take to represent and help people who are oppressed. But if you do really want to help them and you really want to stand for them, in my opinion, then you need to know exactly who they are. And what I mean by exactly is you need to know their name, you need to be familiar with them, have a conversation with them, be part of their social group. And above all else, surely if you want to represent another human being, you need to get the permission. Do you have the right to represent one individual if they never asked you to and condoned and endorsed your support? No. I think so. I think that's only fair. I wouldn't like you or anyone else representing me without my say so. If you were at a rally somewhere and you were saying, Rob has been oppressed, which I have, by women when I was a child, and abused and assaulted and ridiculed and shamed by the females that were supposed to care for me. If you were representing me by saying Rob has been oppressed, we need to hear his voice, I wouldn't be happy if you'd done that without asking me. So just something to think about, don't you think? The other thing about feminism and identity, or identifying as a feminist, got a question for you. Who would you be and what would you do without that identity, without your identity as a feminist or any other type of identity? Surely the only way you can be a feminist or have any other form of identity is by having an opposite. For feminists, the opposite is men, and for having an antagonistic opposite. So the idea that creating an identity or being an identity such as a feminist is that you need your opposite to uphold your own identity. Who would you be and what would you do without oppressive antagonistic men? So maybe the idea that a lot of men, or a proportion of men, are angry dudes, oppressive dudes, that sort of stuff. Maybe that's quite. Maybe it's handy. Maybe it's. Maybe it suits your needs, because what would you be without them? Very rarely do you hear feminists say, let me introduce you to some good men. And that's understandable as well, because I put out a post not long ago on Facebook saying, where are all the good men? And I don't really know. Oh, careful. Somebody nearly drove in front of me on their bike there. So, for all you would-be feminists, and feminists out there, where are all the good men? Do you know? Does anyone know?